No,
Like a
no,
hype.
we just get brought in. We don't do intro songs around here.
Man.
Welcome back to the Behind the Food podcast, guys. Today I'm going solo without Daniel, but he went solo without me like multiple times, so it's fine. And today I have Mike Lassen here with me, who, man, you have like a long history in like restaurants and like franchising. So I'm
Yeah,
super
I don't
pumped
know
to
if
have
that's a
this guy
good thing
here
or a
with me
bad
today.
thing.
I mean, it's a good thing at this point. You've been around the block. Me and Mike met
I'm
because
Jenny.
he used to sell our franchises, which I'm super grateful for. And it was a really interesting experience. For those of you that know like the background behind No Baked, it's like we started as a franchise system. We are now doing that again, but that was really our roots before consumer goods. Mike, why don't you tell everyone how you got your career started? Because that's usually like the question that I ask people. It's like, why did you get into doing what you do? But you've
Yeah.
done, like, your whole career has been this stuff. So, like, what got you into, like, the restaurant and, like, franchising space?
I'm a glutton for punishment is what happened when I'm in the restaurant industry. So I was in the restaurant industry back in middle school. My first back then you could work when you're 13. So I was a busboy. That's how I got into it. And then fast forward to college, I became a bartender, bar manager, and basically started investing in bars and restaurants. So that's how I got into it for the restaurant side of it. And then from there, I realized, man, there's a lot of marketing that these restaurants can be doing to bring in more customers, and they just haven't done it. And with my marketing background and as a art major, I started putting together basically information or books for these restaurants to advertise their business, and it grew pretty quickly. So I started my own freelance company, went to restaurant tours, restaurant owners, and say, hey, I can scale your business and get your customer count up higher for next to nothing. Now, this is before social media was social media. So it was all grassroots and everything else. But sold that. I got to the point where I was doing a lot of graphic design work. I was eating a lot of Cheetos and drinking a lot of beer at my computer. Didn't like it anymore. I was looking for a change. So I had a friend that said, hey, let's get you into franchising. And I was like, I have no idea anything about franchising. They're like, well, you've owned and operated bars and restaurants. I can teach you franchising. So going on almost 2 decades ago, I got into it with a consulting company. And at the peak of that, I oversaw the restaurant division that you're aware of, right? I was actually the one that brought you on to the company. So I oversaw 15 to 20 different clients at any given time with a team of 10 at the pinnacle of that time in that career with that company. I got to the point where I miss being an entrepreneur, and I like what No Baked was doing. So, Jamie, I think I became your second franchisee.
You were the third.
Third. Okay.
Second. Yeah.
Yeah.
You were kind of
Yeah.
at the same time as another one. But,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what it
man.
was. And then it started. Then I opened at the best time in life. I opened 6 months before COVID. Best timing ever.
Epic.
So
Epic timing.
epic timing.
I tell people this all the time. I'm like, I think I've had like a long time to think about it, right? And like consider like, hey, would we have succeeded? And I've sort of come to realize, like, had it not been for the pandemic, I think we would have just kind of like continued on business as usual, and things would have gone like
Oh,
really well.
we would have blown up, but I don't think we would have learned what we did. And I think the pandemic really altered and changed everything, not just for you, but for a lot of restaurant concepts, and really just changed the way that people were buying now. So
Yeah, I mean, it changed the way that like we both like the trajectory of both of our careers. I think a lot of other people's careers as well, and it taught a lesson that I don't think you can necessarily learn from like just a normal
yeah,
experience.
yeah,
And it gave people adversity. I think that like anyone that made it through and made it to the other side and said like, oh man, that was hard. And by the way, when you're in it, when I was in it, when you were in it, I don't think I gave it appreciation for how hard it was, because it
yeah,
was like to me, especially me, because I was so young, like it was just business as usual. Like, this is just the world we live in. Whereas I think you can kind of look back on it now and say, okay, if you're a restaurateur and you survived that in any sense of the word, like you just didn't, go bankrupt essentially, you
yeah,
actually did a great job. Like, good for
yeah.
you. You should pat yourself on the back. In normal times, you'll do great.
Yeah, yes, you're right. Hey, I made it through COVID. I'm good to go. Yeah, but I think also we stress each other, right? To learning from each other. I think you asked, you're like, hey, you should do this, and I think my response to a lot of your questions was why, and you're like, okay. I'm like,
Yeah.
no, why should I do that? You're like, yeah, and then I think I became like the worst best owner for you because
I
we were just
think
trying to survive.
yeah, I think as far as like franchisees that we got around the first time, like no shade on the other ones, but you were the only one that was like a good, like first time franchisee to have. Because you guys really put in like the effort and the work to like understand the brand, understand maybe like here's some things that'll move the needle. Whereas like the other groups that like, they were in the same boat as me and you, like, yes, they opened right before COVID and they weren't exactly happy about it. They did feel the adversity and then just kind of like walk it back. Like,
Yeah,
hey, like
mine.
we have other
Yeah.
stuff that we do that's stop doing
Yeah,
this.
we jumped all the way in. We're like, okay, community involvement. What can we do? What can we, I think I started a wholesale program behind your back, which you finally caught, but it is what it is. But
Everybody did things that they were trying to
we,
do to
we had to
survive.
survive. We had to survive, but I think a lot of things came from that though. Like a lot, right? I challenge you, like, I'm doing this, like, well, and then I think it forced Steve and Megan to think, oh, well, we're going to let him do it. We got to really structure this bigger than what we're doing now. And then that, I think, propelled you guys into more of the CPG and everything else too.
It did. It also changed my thinking on how franchisors should think about like alternative business channels because you're forced to like think about the concept in a broader sense when the thing you do usually, which is run a restaurant, is taken away. So like if your foot traffic is taken away, then like what do you do? And a lot of franchisors I think did a okay job of figuring out like, hey, how do we like provide something that's like outside of that? But the one franchisor that inspired me the most during that time actually was King of Pops. They were
Yeah.
originally all corporately owned, and then Nick started P10 Foods, which was No Bake's first distributor, and
Yeah.
then they turned it into franchisees from corporately owned. And when they did that, they made all the franchisees sales reps for the wholesale product. And I thought it was like the most interesting thing in the world because I was like, oh, this definitely was born out of the pandemic. But also, like, Nick did it in a way where it was all integrated. Like, they owned the distribution company, they had the brand, now they had franchisees, and they had been struggling trying to get people out there to sell, like, the distribution company's products because it wasn't just their popsicles. And suddenly it was like, oh, you have all these people that are on the ground in their community that are trusted. And now they can go and, like, do the thing. I always thought that was interesting because, like, when you look at, like, the big brands, like Dairy Queen or, like, Chick-fil-A even, it's like, oh, that could be a thing, but it's not. I mean, they're focused, obviously, they want to focus on the core business model, but
Yeah.
there are all these other
And
things that franchisees represent, I think, for a brand, and people don't realize that. Like, those are
yeah,
advocates, those are owners.
yeah, I don't think you're ever going to change the mindset of like QSR brands, right? It's going to be the traditional franchise model, or you have the Chick-fil-A model, which is, I mean, they're killing it, right? It's basically an ownership model. It's not so much a traditional franchise, but great brand, great product, great support. They do amazing work, but I don't think you're ever going to change the mindset of the QSR brands. It's going to be franchising. It's not going to be that sales rep material or what you mentioned, that sales rep as a
Yeah, you
franchisee.
kind of turn them into like an advocate for the brand, man. I mean, like
Yeah.
you look at those brands and they have made moves to have like consumer products. They obviously have extremely strong brands. I don't think people think enough about how their brand is like actually worth something beyond like the thing that they do. But like if you're Chick-fil-A, you are a household name in like the whole world. And like that carries weight, which is really cool.
I like looking at new brands that are just up and coming that are getting their traction through social media. And I always wonder, they're going after not, so I'm a millennial, but they're going after Gen X and younger people. I always wonder, they blow up via social media. Well, in 15 years, when that generation grows up, is it still going to be the same way, social media, or how are they going to grow their traction? Or are they going to fade away? It's interesting to me because the
That's actually a
QSR
really
brands,
interesting question.
yeah, because like the legacy brands, I say any QSR brand or Chick-fil-A, man, they're staples. They're not going to go anywhere, and they're done the traditional way. But I'm excited to see new brands come and change the mold of social media and networking and how they're getting their customers. And yeah, but their brand is not so much their brand. Their brand is themselves, which
Yeah.
compels them to have their own. Yeah.
Here's something that like I have a question for you. So you've been doing this for a while. Obviously you worked with a ton of brands before you, even before you were like a franchisee with No Baked. So you've been doing this long enough to like you can look back like 10 years ago there were brands that you worked with. Of those brands, like which ones became successful, and like did you know at the time when you met someone who had like one or two stores that they would be someone that became like a brand that worked?
Yeah. No, I think when I first started, just be all transparency, we brought on a lot of brands. I would say, out of 10 brands, you would, and I think a lot of consultants can say this when they work with a large amount of brands, is if you have 10, I think you're going to hit two or three that are going to be successful, another two that will be decent, and then the other five will kind of fade away. I think I don't think it's any fault to the consultant or the brand. I think, it's just what the industry want or what people are looking for. Uh, One story I remember is I think we brought on Sky Zone trampoline park, and we were like, it's trampoline, like no one's gonna buy into this, and it's like it becomes like the first ever trampoline park, and it just blew up. Like the industry just blew up, and we were like, huh, there might be something here. So that was always fun, like when that happened, because I think they had like one or they had a rough store to start with, and then when it became concepts, one of my favorite brands I worked with was when the build your own pizza craze started, and Dar Malekli with Pizza Press, uh, too, phenomenal product, and he's resurging again, and he's gonna I believe he's gonna start up his franchise model again. But we did a lot with them and wildly successful. But I think other brands that people don't really know about, the service industry brands. There are some brands for mobility for elderly people that's never going to go anywhere. And looking back on it, I knew restaurants inside and out because I ran and operated them. I could run them with my eyes closed. Never want to do it again. But I'm not a big operator anymore. But looking back on it and now seeing it, the service industries where you don't have a brick and mortar, and those are, or you have territories, no brick and mortar. Those are what's I think a lot of people are diving into because it's more blue collar work, less investment to get into or capital to get into, and you can grow it pretty. And there are things that people need. I know a person that has that have a gutter guard franchise. I know for a fact he nets well over $4.5 million himself. All he does is goes to homes, sells gutter guards because people need gutter guards. So it's
Yeah.
just, it's amazing to see the service brands take off. And then I think another industry that's going to be that's taken off that everybody knows is the with the baby boomers and care. So
Yeah, I mean those service-based businesses are interesting because they're not something that I understood very well until recently. And the more you look into it, everyone who follows me on LinkedIn probably knows, or maybe they don't know. Like I just bought a construction company. It's a fully service-based
what?
business. It doesn't do any like there's no inventory. Like it's just people going out and doing jobs. Um, it is something where like you to your point, like it's not going away, and also at the same time, it is blue collar work that maybe not
Yeah,
as affected by
appealing. Yeah,
AI or
it's not
whatever it
sexy.
is.
Yeah, and it's not
Yeah,
sexy work, right? So
yeah. So you don't hear about them, but they're doing really well, right? Like they're killing it. Um, so would you say like is there anything that you saw from like Sky Zone or like any of these other brands that you guys onboarded that did really well, where you were like, that's something that they all have in common, like a trait or a thing about the founder, or was it kind of just like, dude, random chance, like right place,
I
right
think it's
time?
both. I think I certainly believe in right place, right time for any brand, and I think not just for any brand, but for any person, right? When jobs or things happen to you in your life, I think it's right time, or right place, right time. But a lot of them, I think, successful brands in general understand a realistic growth trajectory that they're trying to get into, and then building their team around that to support when that happens. A lot of brands get ahead of themselves, think that they're going to blow up pretty quickly, and they overhire, and it just ruins their bottom line. And so I think good brands have good people surrounding them. They have, they're hiring at the right time, and they're true. They're truly passionate about the brand that they represent. So I think that's what I see just in
Yeah,
general. Like for me, I'm passionate about food. I like food. I like food brands. It's just maybe I like the chaos too behind it too, with the food brands. A lot harder than a service brand, but that's what I love to do. And I've there's a lot of gray areas that people can work in with the food brands to help scale it. So yeah,
I think anyone that's worked in a restaurant before like knows there's inherent chaos, and
it's,
also
it's
it's
not
like one of
easy.
those things that's like kind of attractive to some people to like live in the chaos and like be there. And it's not as easy to your point to like even get open or run. Like the initial
It's so
investment to
hard.
open a restaurant is very large. Like you have to have a lot of money and you have to have a lot of passion.
I sold so many bars and restaurants when I first started, and when it came more specifically for bars, I always got two things with the franchise where I'm like, what sets you apart? And they would say, oh, we're X, Y, and Z. I'm like, well, so is everybody else. And then when I would talk to people that wanted to buy a bar, I'm like, what do you think this is going to take? They're like, oh, I've always wanted to own a bar. And in their head, they're thinking that's norm at off Cheers or sit at the end of the bar, drink beer, and that's what they do. And
Yeah.
I'd probably say like 95% of the people I talk to is like, yeah, this isn't for you, man. Like, I don't think you understand the amount of work it's going to take for you to go in, and it's going to be very hard to make, a 10 or 15% margin.
Yeah, you have to like pinch pennies at a certain point. I mean, restaurant operators that are good, like people that make
Yeah.
money, are like super efficient people. The
Yeah. They
people
know
that
what
are
they're
like
doing.
questioning every expense, they look at the bank account every day. They're like, "What is this? I'm not paying for
Yeah.
that."
Well, and they have good people around them and they trust the people around them.
Yeah,
My biggest thing when I had my restaurants and stuff is like, for instance, no bake. I'll just use no baked because it's a very simple concept to comprehend. I was really good when I worked. I knew when I rang up the cash register, I was going to hit my goals that day. But I knew we could have the exact same amount of people the next day, and I would have someone else there, not knowing how to upsell, not my personality or whatever it may be, that I was going to lose. I was going to not make $500 extra like I know I would. And my biggest hesitation was to relinquish control to say, I can teach them so much that they're not going to be me and they're not going to sell like I do. They might not make as much money in that cash register, but that's not my goal. My goal is to grow them, take a step back and grow the business. And that was the
yeah.
hardest thing for me because I was like, I just need to get away. So finding good people and then just learning to let go was a big thing.
That's actually like one of the things we're looking for in franchisees now. And I think it's something that's incredibly hard for most people to do. I'll give you an example, like because you're super familiar with the concept. So like no baked now, like the way I'm selling it and like the way that we run our business, like our scoop shop is very like hands off. You do not touch the business, you place it in the right spot, you sell the right products. You definitely hire and train the staff to like actually
Yeah.
care. And that's by far the hardest part. But then it is key that the person takes a step back. And I've had this conversation with new franchisee candidates where I'm like, you have this option, guys, of 80/20, and you're going to get 80% of the results on 20% of the effort. And that 20% of the effort is managing the team, making sure they're trained, making sure they have the right resources so they can run their business, and the site selection and getting the place open and all of that. 80 on the back end that then provides 20% more results, which is much more important when you run into something like COVID, or like bad location or like anything like this. The other 80% is like, we're gonna go do events in the community. We're gonna like go do catering. We're gonna do all this stuff. And it's crazy how like the good operators definitely want to do those things and it builds the brand and it's awesome. But I've been super upfront with people where I'm like, that's the 80. Like that's the 80% of your effort. It will provide 20%. Like it actually is about 20% more. So like for our store, we put in that effort corporately, but we're trying to do the right things. And it's funny how like foot traffic provides that like $600,000, and
Dude, foot traffic's everything for the.
the next 120 is like we sold catering and we busted our ass doing it. But to that point, it's like really interesting because I think most owners don't actually understand that concept because that is almost the same across the board. And the thing that runs through, which you like mentioned at the beginning of this, is good people. Like you're gonna get that foot traffic, you're gonna get that like 80% of the results on 20% of the effort, only if there are really good employees there. And like that alone is like the hardest thing to do in the world. It's super, super
And
hard.
especially when they're hourly employees and they're young. individuals, it's hard, right? How do you motivate them? And it just really comes down to their relationship with you or the owner. Like, how are you going to propel them? Like, they might be in high school, but why are they going to stick around? Why not go somewhere else for $2 more? Well, is
Yeah.
it freedom, or can you give them ideas to, like, hey, help me with the catering, I'll pay you more, or how can I help you get into a college that you want to, or whatnot. So I think it's different levels on the different concepts that you represent. I think with No Bake, you guys, I think where you guys are at now is so far ahead of where we started. You always tinker with
We
the
have a lot
idea
more
of,
experience.
well, that, but but you bring up a concept, because people now want smaller square footage. They want something easy to operate and able to get into a brand, cheap. I say cheap, but like a cost-effective brand that they know they can make their money back within 18 months or something, right? And you guys structure it where now you're not even making the dough. Maybe you are. I can't remember, but I know
You're
that.
not.
Yeah. So
You're
now
definitely
you
not
guys are.
now. There's things like that, and to your point, man. Like I think the main job of the owner, like the franchise owner, is being someone who's really really good at managing those kids. Like if you so and that's what me and Megan kind of hung our hat on as we grew the CPG business. It's like, well, why were Megan and Jimmy able to pay their bills? Like people in the consumer space would always be confused. They'd be like, well, you guys haven't raised a bunch of money. How is it that you are, buying food?
Dude. Yeah.
It's like, well, I have
Yes.
this shop that runs itself. And it's like, when I say runs itself, I really meant like, there are really incredible people working for us. Some of them, the current manager started working for us when she was 16. Like, these are people that have been there forever. And they have a relationship with me and Megan. And that relationship enables us to be more passive than if we didn't have a good relationship with them. Um, and to your point, man, like you did a good job of that when you were the franchisee of the Springfield store. And then the Springfield store was the easiest place for me to see firsthand once you sold it. Where different owners create different relationships with their staff, and that creates
Or the
problems for the
community. Yeah.
owner.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the
or the
community.
community.
Yeah. That's the biggest
And
thing.
but it all filters down from literally just like the owner's personality. Like, hey man, like are you just like a person people want to be around, and are you like good at managing people? And so that's turned in for me it's turned into something where it's like, yeah, it's a really cool concept. You can like create, you can do what I'm doing, right? That's why I'm franchising again. I'm like, hey, well, I should franchise this if it's working for me, and it's worked for me for almost a decade. It hasn't been like this the whole decade, but like for the last 4 years, it's really worked. I'm like, I have to question, well, that totally is replicable, but if it's replicable, what's the thing that the person has to do? And it's like, and I think this is across every restaurant business. Like, you have to be the owner people want to work for. I have a friend that's a bartender here in Bozeman, my business partner's wife, and like we own the construction company together. She bartends at a restaurant downtown, and she picked that restaurant based on the ownership. She was like, I
100%.
wanted. She's an amazing bartender. Like she's been doing this job forever. She's in her late 30s. Really, really wonderful person. Great at the job, and she could have worked at many different places,
Yeah.
and she chose to work there because of the owners.
Yeah. I mean, I work, the best part about my job is not like, from aside from working with the franchisors and helping them grow and develop, is when I talk to franchisees and giving them insight on, okay, how do you want to grow your store, right? Because a lot of companies I work for they're only scaling like five at a time, like five unit deals at a time. And talking to those owners, I'm like, how are you going to scale that, right? You can't be there everywhere, and you got to be a owner that people want to work for, right? Some of these, I've worked with brands that, like, I asked their employees, how long have you been here? It's like 15 years, 20 years, 22. I'm like, Jesus. And it's all about the owner and the relationship. And they're not, the owners aren't paying them, you know, a lot of money, right, to stay. They're, hey, I know that your kids are sick, go home, or something that's they're personable and relatable to. And working with owners saying, okay, if you want to develop your staff and you want to grow and not work at the store, how are you going to reward them, not personally but like financially? Are you going to give them some ownership share? Why wouldn't you? Or give them more bonus structure to incentivize them to sell more, to make them more money? And there's so many different things that you can do with owners, and that's why I love that's what I like talking to owners about, is like, how are you going to scale this, and what are you going to do? Because every owner is going to be different on how they think about it, and some owners are they don't want to give any equity. That's fine. But how are you going to grow it then? And how are you going to relate? Other ones, we started mentorships or scholarship funds for people. And that's always really fun too.
Yeah, I mean, people definitely need to like be like forward thinking about like what, because obviously you can't just like hand out money to people, right? Like you don't have
I
infinite
wish.
money. You like, well, yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
Here's
be like, guys, we run
I'm
this
making
business
way
to
too,
lose money.
yeah, guys. Yeah, I'm making way too much money. Here's some more for you guys.
Here's all of it to you. Like you can't
Yeah.
necessarily do that because you'll run out. But like there are so many other ways that you can be like a good boss, and like people should really like consider like what is it that you're doing. I'm convinced that everything that's been happening to me with that, with at least with the retail business, has been definitely like related all the way back to like, hey, I think we've like done the best we possibly could to like make sure our employees are happy. Obviously, it's a job. And it's not like the best thing in the world all the time, but like we're gonna do our best, and like that's it. Anyways,
I
man.
think I think owners and I think owners just need to be upfront too. I think a lot of them that they just get not blunt, but they just need to be more upfront and more transparent with people.
Yeah,
I
way
think
more
they keep a
transparent.
lot. Yeah.
One thing I was going to ask you is, so after you weren't a franchisee with us anymore, and you like hopped back into the like franchisor world, and you were selling franchises, what what have the things been that have been like different since like COVID happened? Because I mean, just to give everyone background, like Mike left being a franchisee for us, and then went and like hopped back into the world of like selling franchises. And so like selling franchises is something you've now done for like way over a decade.
20, yeah, going on 20
Yeah,
years.
going on 20 years. Like, what has
Jesus. Yeah.
changed from like the beginning of when you guys were selling them and like what you were doing to like today and like some of the brands that you work with? I know you just left Steak and Shake, which is
Yeah,
interesting.
just left Steak and Shake. Yeah, just left that brand. Um, what I'm seeing across is when it comes to franchising, because things are just going to get more expensive. Real estate's getting more expensive. Build out construction is more expensive. So franchisors are a lot more aware of what they need to be doing. So the square footage needs to be smaller, right? The equipment needs to be less. The investment capital needs to be, you just need to get that overall initial investment down. And now you're getting more sophisticated investors that are coming in, and you got brands that are turning heads. Like I'm just mentioning, like Dave's Hot Chicken or Mike's Red Taco is a big new one, or other brands like this that they know they come in, they're spending X amount, but they know they're making their return very quickly. So, and that's what consumers are looking for now. I would say 10 years ago, it wasn't like that. More people were coming in like, oh man, I'm passionate about this brand. I can build it. I can have, I can look for a 5 year return and I'll be happy. Man, a lot of people are more aggressive now. They want it within 18 months, 3 years of their return. And franchisors are hearing that and they're okay, how can we get the investment lower in its square footage, right? Because real estate is expensive, square footage. And a lot of these brands now are looking into how can I do more non-traditional locations. But I think COVID changed everything when you're looking at the QR space and QSR space. It's drive-through is key. A lot of people aren't going in to dine in anymore. They want to get their food. They want to get out. The younger generation does not want to interact with us. They want their food. They're used to technology. They can go to a kiosk. They can get their food and they're done with it. Right. They want convenience over personality. And that's what brands are looking at now is smaller square footage. People are not sitting in anymore. They want their food more quickly. And drive-throughs, I think for Steak and Shake, I know it switched before COVID. Steak and Shake was over 60% dine-in. After COVID, it was over 60% drive-through, right? And that's with most brands, if not all of them. So I think that's a big change for them too. And I think a lot of people are doing more research. They're not just looking at the brand itself, like, oh, I love this. I love the concept, I love the product. They're looking at the franchise, or they're looking at, okay, who am I really going to be working with? The Spice and Tea Exchange that I worked for was uh, very known for that. The owners really wanted to know all the franchisees that were coming in, and it meant a lot for these franchisees because this brand wasn't a massive brand that people were buying 3 or 5. It just really was really hard to because they were looking at uh, downtown areas like small town USA. There's only so many in a state you can do, but they were buying into the people behind the brand and the product, not so much of just the brand name and the product, but the people behind it. And I think people are looking at that.
Yeah. I mean, just to like comment on that, like, I think when it comes to like higher ROI or like faster return of your capital, I think that's going to continue to like kind of drive professional investors to look at the
Has
space.
to, 100%.
Because like when you look at like some of the investment opportunities out there, like, if no baked pans out to be the way that like I think it can, no, you can't open infinite locations. I don't think that
I
that's
think what
possible.
we
That's
learned, I think what we learned during that time is it's not an end cap anymore. It's high foot traffic is what no bake means.
Yeah, it's definitely high
Yeah.
foot traffic, and you also think about the fact that like you can't open infinite locations, but if you were like a really good investor, and I'm using my brand as an example just because I'm familiar with it, but there's lots of other brands that are trying to nail this ROI math where like I know that like to get our kiosk open in the food hall, we spent about 70 grand. If I had been a franchisee and paid the franchise fee, what, like 85 grand. And then that shop makes, you know, it's fluctuated over the years, but like roughly, like give or take between like 150, 200 grand before like debt service. Um, and most of these people will come in and they'll use debt to like open the stores and keep the cash in the bank. But like that math is great, and it only works because of the footprint, and it only works when it's like hyper efficient. And I don't know. I think there'll be a lot more concepts that nail that down. And then also to your point, for people that aren't professional investors, I think more and more like of those individual franchisees, you were talking about this before, might start like being pushed toward like service-based businesses. Because it's like, hey man, I can get this thing off the ground for like 50 grand. I do not have infinite money, and yet my job just got taken by like AI. Just an example. Like I worked at Oracle, now I don't, and I need something to do, and maybe this is better than getting fired again. And like for anyone that's worried about it, it's like I really think more people should look into entrepreneurship, especially via franchising, because no, maybe you're not an entrepreneur by like nature, but like you can run a franchise. You can
Yeah.
do that.
It's not difficult to run a franchise if you get into something that you're familiar with, that you know that you can do. And that's what I'm saying is with a lot of these people that aren't sophisticated investors that get into these larger brands that are multi-million dollar brands, which those produce, you can get on these smaller brands that is much cheaper to get into, and that franchisor will give you a lot more assistance at the beginning because they need you, right? And that's what I'm saying is when you're looking at these investors now, they're really looking at the franchisor and their assistance on saying, how can you get me up and running? Because I'm really new at this. Now that has never changed, but I think I'm seeing a lot more of that because I think that gap between the sophisticated investor and the beginners are getting larger. And but I think that gap is going to be filled. That gap is going to be a lot smaller here momentarily because the franchisors are realizing, man, our investment needs to be smaller, square footage needs to be smaller, and that's what they're getting to because it's really cutting in costs. I mean, heck, I was looking at real estate in New York for I think it was like 2,200 square feet or 3,200 square feet. They were paying. I think they were paying upwards of 70 to 85,000 a month, right? I mean, and that's New York. New York is its own monster and its own beast, but it's something to look at because other markets are like that. Other markets are getting to that higher square footage for no reason, but that's what it is. And then you got to charge more, and yeah, it's just smaller. That's what
Real
you need to
estate
get to.
prices have inflated a lot, but I think
So
to your
much,
point,
yeah.
man, like operators like you, I know this because I watched you build your store, but like there's a lot of people that question the norm and then they proceed to like save costs on things that they shouldn't have spent money on. And I think as they do that at the corporate level at larger brands, hopefully they'll come to the conclusion that like any good entrepreneur would come to. Granted, these are like large companies with not the smartest people in charge
No,
sometimes, but like
sometimes
if you simply
right
looked at it
place, right
from like
time.
this, yeah, you, but you looked at it from like the small business owner's perspective, right? Like
Yeah,
any good small business owner knows like you should be looking to penny pinch all the time. Why? Because like, dude, that's your livelihood. Like you're not spending money on dumb stuff. And I think when you analyze a lot of these concepts, and I'll specifically look at like coffee shops for this, it's like, why does your coffee shop need to be 3,000 square feet? Why'd you have to build a building for your coffee shop? Or maybe building the building was a smart move because of like the real estate play. But like, maybe we should start talking about how you turn this thing into something that like is more efficient rather than like hey, the franchisor said it's just supposed to be 4,000 square feet. We must do this. And it's
Well,
like,
yeah,
maybe
I'm
that
li-
requirement should be thought about again, rethought.
yeah, I'm working with two coffee shops right now, and one thinking that smaller square footage and it needs to be on a main drag, right? But I'm working with another coffee shop that's saying, hey, what we want to do is have a standalone location, and then we have these mobile carts that you can drive around, and it's working, right? Like, why not be at a busy street corner? You know how many food trucks I see on the construction sites behind me? I mean, why not a coffee shop, right? And so
Yeah.
it's really fun consulting with these. You happen to bring up coffee shops. I happen to have two of them, but consulting with them. One, it used to be a franchise, now it's becoming a franchise again, and it got rebought, and they're about to relaunch it, which is exciting because it's a very popular one up in the Northeast and North Carolina. The other one's down in Houston. They're looking at doing uh, mobile coffee trucks, which is very
That's cool.
honestly very cheap to get into, and you can take over a territory without having a massive brick and mortar.
Yeah. And
That real estate debt. Yeah,
that's like not that hitting the nail on the head for what you were talking about. It's like, hey, this is something that like the normal person who is working a 9 to 5 that wants to become a small business owner, they can do this. They can't like they may have a hard time hopping into like I don't know like a six, seven, eight, $900,000 investment for a large brick and mortar store, maybe more. But it's like, yeah, I can spend like 50, 100 grand getting this like mobile operation up and running. And by the way, I can finance 90% of it with SBA debt. So I'm only
yeah,
out of pocket 10 grand
yeah. And I think
and
a
I
lot
can
of
make this
franchise.
happen.
Yeah, and a lot of larger franchisors are also looking into. We all know we've all been through this. SBA is a process that's not fun to go through, right? And it's all about you. What's your credit? It all comes back to you, and it also comes back to the franchisor. Have they been doing well? Have they been closing a lot of stores? But I think a lot of franchisors now are realizing, what can we do to help people come into the system so they don't have to use SBA? Are there more non-traditional ways of doing it, of like 401k rollovers, or utilizing their HELOC, or something else that they can bypass the how strict the SBA is? So franchisors are taking that into account as well.
I think there's going to be some really cool stuff that happens in that regard, like to your point. And also, there are creative ways that somebody can like get into it where, if you go deep, if you're building out a store, which obviously this goes back to like having to put up money for real estate, but like if you're able to sign a lease and build out a store and you get tenant allowance, you can use that to pay for some of it. Yeah, you need the money up front, but you can use the TA to reimburse yourself on the back end. It's like you can be creative about equipment financing and finance it separately. Super easy to finance equipment. It's like there are so many different ways that you can like make it much more doable
Yeah.
for the franchisee, and
And,
yeah, a lot cleaner than the SBA
yeah.
probably.
And one thing I would say back to, we kind of talked about real estate, is one thing it's hard for, I always press, and it's hard for franchisees to take it in, is you have A and B locations. A location is going to be a lot more expensive, but it's a reason. And all day I would pay that extra real estate. I would pay that extra charge for that location over a B location all day. And they just got to know that franchisees and franchisors don't know what they don't know until they ask. So I would negotiate as much as I can anytime, whether it be with real estate, tenant improvement allowances, anything. Hell, I think I negotiated you to with my franchise agreement and everything. I was really
We
bad.
negotiated, yeah, but
Yeah, yeah,
it's
but
something that everybody should do. And I even tell people this now when they're, which now we're a little bit beyond like the first few franchisees, but when I was getting the first couple signs a couple months ago, I was like, you can negotiate. Like I'm letting you know because
yeah,
you should. And I think when you get into franchising as a franchisee, you should really. And what's kind of funny, Mike, is like people in normal life, if they've never been a small business owner before or an entrepreneur, they kind of assume that the price is the price.
yeah. It's
Weird.
not
It's not like if
vendors,
it was,
lenders. It's not. Yeah,
I negotiated the rental that I have here in Bozeman. When we went to negotiate or when we went to sign the lease, I was like, hey, can you guys like discount the rent? And they were like, what? And I was like, yeah, I mean, there's not anyone living here yet. I know you guys are giving me a couple months free, but why don't we just do like $400 less a month? And they were like, maybe. And I was like, no one's ever asked you this, have they?
Yeah. No.
Lo and
No,
behold,
it's
they were
not.
like, sure, and they did
Yeah.
it. So I just
Right.
think more people need to ask when they're like negotiating stuff in real life,
Yeah.
anyways.
And my thing is this: when I'm usually on the franchisor side, but I'm an advocate, and a good negotiation is somebody both sides get something, right? That's a good negotiation. If it's one side, it's not. But for my background, I always protect the franchisor. I know what is negotiable, what's not, but I always try to negotiate, protect the franchisor. But there's times where I would talk to the franchisee. I'm like, hey man, you can negotiate other stuff, and I would have recommend you get a franchise attorney, because a lot of people like, oh, I got a buddy down the street, he can do this. I'm like, dude, he's going to cost you so much money, and he's going to ask for 100 things. I'm going to say no to every single one of them. Like, get someone professional that can work with you, and that's not just real estate and attorneys. That's your vendors, that's your lenders, that's anyone, that your landlord, that's anyone. Like, you'll be surprised what you can get, or terms you can get without just asking. Yeah.
Yeah, people generally just don't ask, and then it just doesn't turn into anything because they never tried to turn it into
Yeah.
anything.
Now with our business that you and I are starting, I we don't negotiate. So
No, we don't negotiate at all. Um, let's talk about that, man, because that's really exciting. I spent for most people know this. Like I spent the last year doing this podcast, changing a lot of things about No Baked, kind of going back to our roots, and then really trying to rediscover what I was passionate about. And you and I started talking again for reasons that had nothing to do with working together. I think it had to do with like the Springfield franchisee, and
probably.
then we yeah. RIP.
We'll just leave it at that. Yeah.
We'll leave it at that. So we started talking again, and I was talking to you about Steak and Shake, and you were like, "Man, it's great. It's cool to work for a legacy brand that I actually like." And then it turned out that you were leaving, and I also had still not figured out what I actually wanted to do. I knew that I wanted to like franchise No Baked, but I kept like I was working with some consumer brands on like helping them do stuff, doing some other things, and over like my conversations with you, and then also reflecting on like what we're focusing on at Novik now, and all of my friends, man, like all my friends are restaurateurs. I like doing this. And so me and you decided to start an agency together where we're going to help people franchise their restaurant concepts, or any
Yeah. Like,
concept for that matter.
yeah. And, I think when I've been in the industry for so long that, going to the trade shows and conferences and still hearing the exact same shitty spiels about the exact same companies and what they charge people. I'm like, what? Like, I don't think a lot of where it came, you and I were both on the same page. It's like, man, we've made a lot of great connections, that people do a lot of great work, and they're truly honorable people, and they want people to succeed, and they don't have 50 or 100 staff that they got to feed, right? And
Yeah.
so through this, like, man, we can really help these brands come on for cheap. I hate saying cheap and cheerful, but pretty much cheap and cheerful, save them a lot of capital, not get into debt, and help them and get them in touch with the right people, and not tell them that they have to work with this person. Like, we just provide that insight. And you and I just brought on a client, and we heard, and the first thing that they said, oh, we worked with this brand, and we're now in the hole by a lot. And I'm like, but you got good work. Like, yeah, we got work, but it's work that we didn't need. We have all this stuff that we don't need. And if they would have worked with us at the beginning, we would have saved them over 100 grand plus. And
Yes.
now we're just being real with them. We're consulting with them, getting in touch with the right people, and we're being real. We're not saying, oh yeah, first year you're going to make. Yeah, what did I pitch you? Because that's where I came. The company I was with,
It
I
is where you
realized
came
what was,
from.
and that's why I'm like, what are we doing? I got to the
But
point
it's
where, like,
also
I'm
what I was
selling.
involved in, right? Like
Yeah.
as a
Well,
founder.
it's yeah. From my experience, like, I didn't know what I didn't know, and then as I got more into the business after, like, so many years, I was like, man, I'm selling this franchisee, or this franchisee that's not a good franchisee, but my boss is making me hit my quota, right? Or I'm hearing my bosses lie, or they're spinning these truths and over promising. I'm like, what am I? This is not what I feel awful. And I'm like, I need to get out of this. And that's why, I talked to you. I'm like, hey, I want to become a franchisee. And that's always stuck with me through every brand I've worked with, is bringing on the right people. I want to work with the right franchisor. But how can we, but there's so many people that when they just want to franchise and they don't know how. And they
Well,
get
there's a
ripped
lot of
off.
people that want to franchise, right? And they get ripped off because they don't know what they don't know. And this is the type of industry where you have someone who's like a killer restaurateur, right? Like have one or two or three really killer locations. They're killing it. They have money, and there's a whole industry of people, generally like highly recommended, who, yeah, we'll make your operations manual. Yeah, we'll make your marketing material. Yeah, we'll do all this stuff. And those things are all super necessary and they do good work. What happens is that they charge a lot for it now. They used to not. I know that because I didn't pay as much as these people are, and I used some of the same people. We got No Baked up and running franchising for like 50K. So like 50 grand. I had like operations manual, legal, the whole nine, right? And then we paid you guys to sell them, when that was a whole separate thing. But uh, now what's happening is like those people are in the same spot I was. I was 23, so I chalk it up to being young, or 24, because we'd already started. But like at 24 years old, I was desperate to kill it. I was like, I want to sell franchises. Let's make this happen. And that desperation causes people to be really easy targets to like sell them services, like because they want to succeed. The same thing happens in consumer. You have a brand, you want to sell it in the grocery store, and I'm sorry if some of you are listening to this, because you probably are, or you will, or you'll see it somehow. It'll be shared to you. I don't hate food brokers. Yeah, I don't hate food brokers, but like a lot of you guys prey on the early stage CPG founder who wants to sell their product to Kroger, and you're like, I know someone at Kroger, and so because of that, they immediately sign up to pay you a $5,000 a month retainer, and they never get a meeting with Kroger, and they laced like 60 grand.
And that's the same thing with franchising. I mean, there's that's the industry.
But it's over promised, right? It's like desperation allows
the
partners at these firms to say, because by the way, it's not a lie. They may actually succeed. Like it might actually work. They could blow you up. But the problem is that like it's not guaranteed. And I think as a small business owner and entrepreneur,
you don't set those expectations.
You have to be grounded in reality. When it's your money and your bank account, like I'd rather someone come to us. We help kind of guide them through the process in the most cost-effective way possible, and then introduce them to partners, like you said, that these are normal human beings that also want to see you succeed.
And I think the direction that you and I are headed, and we're getting clients, which is great, and we like them all so far. But no, what we're trying to do with our beyond the brand franchising is we want to get them up and running. Some of them are already up and running, which is great, but to teach them how to franchise within their four walls, how to sell their first 5 or 10 locations. Because to be honest, unless you're very lazy or they don't really want to do it, there's no reason why they should be hiring a franchise broker or a salesperson to do their franchise sales until they get to 5 or 10. And that's our goal, is get them to the point where they're scaling and they need to bring on more people. And that's where we will then come in. Hopefully they love us enough and we taught them enough that, hey, now we want to exercise your full services and do the FSO and do all the lead generation, do everything else for them. And I think that's just, you build that trust, you build that confidence for them. And then hopefully, it comes back to us. And right now we're having good success, and, and we're just partnering with a lot of good people right now.
Yeah, it's been fascinating to see how many people are like out there, and the thing that I'm excited to do though is just go back to working with like early stage like brands like
They're
mine.
fun.
I mean,
Yeah.
they're fun, and like I like food and I like doing the thing, and I don't know, doing it for No Baked. Obviously, No Baked is still what I would consider early stage, but we also have been doing it for a very long time. And so this time around for me has been quite easy in comparison to like when I first met you. Like it was hard to sell those first few franchises, but it was hard because like you're super early and no one trusts you yet, and they don't know who your brand is or what your brand is, and so building that trust is hard.
And working with new brands, it's like, I see it as like when I was a soccer coach, right? I love coaching, but I never liked coaching people that were a junior, anybody higher than a junior in high school, because they already have I'm not going to fix their bad practices. I'm not going to fix their bad habits. They're not going to listen. And so I see it as these new brands that come on, like they just don't know what they don't know. And we can tell them, very bluntly, this is what you need to do before they start building bad habits or listening to the much bigger companies that's saying, well, we have 500 years of experience and we work with, 125 brands, and we've sold, we worked with Bunk Cakes and we sold the first 200. Well,
Yeah.
that's a different kind of brand compared to you, right? I
Well,
mean,
also these people latch
yeah,
on to their success, so they'll pick the one
yeah.
success story they got, and they'll latch onto it, and they'll be like, "I got that, and I can take that, and I can sell you the dream, the hope that we might be able to make this happen for you." And it's like that's cool, and it's also valid because they might actually make it happen for you. But
Well, and
what
that's
I
what I
know to
said
be
earlier,
true
right? Yeah,
now
10
is it's like
brands, two of
different.
them are good. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Two of them work. You never know who it's really going to be. It seems like
And
I to this day I have not been able to figure out like what the secret sauce is, other than like you put your finger on the pulse of reality. And this is coming from someone who, like, when I started No Baked, we blew up. We were on trend. We somehow hit the nail on the head, right, timing wise. I
mhm.
don't know how. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't. I'm not magical. Neither is Megan. We don't know, tell the future. We got lucky, and like to a certain degree, that's kind of has a lot to do with it.
Well, like I said, I always say right place, right time. It's for anything aspect in your life or business. You guys were doing it at the right time, right place, and
And
I
then the
think for every
wrong
brand,
wrong time.
yeah, but that you don't know, but you made it through it. But I think with the brands that we work with is just being very blunt, very open, very honest with them. We don't just take on anyone. It's brands that we like, right? We're not just going to do it because you have 20 restaurants and we can make money. It's like, man, can I work with this person and are they willing to learn? And are they willing? I hate to say it, but also coaching them how to spend the money properly, because setting the expectations like, hey, I want a franchise. People don't understand how much it costs to start it. They just don't, and not so much the upgoing initial cost to get into it, but then lead
The
generation and
ongoing,
getting
yeah.
the ongoing, and that's where I think you and I come in, saying we can cut a lot of that cost down and just work directly with you, teach you how to do it internally, and not have five consultants or five companies do this for you, and
Yeah.
we can do it for pennies on the dollar, and we have a walkway. Our agreements are pretty much a handshake agreement. If you're not liking what you're seeing, no hard feelings. And
It's kind of fascinating, man, because like through my whole career, whether it was like doing the e-com stuff, it's always been no baked, but like we did e-commerce and we did franchising and we did CPG, and the amount of money that people charge is high. And then also, I don't know if I'd call it the stupid tax, but it's really just like the experimentation tax is quite high, right? To experiment with like what agency will work for me, what thing should we hire this digital agency, since we were like, I at one point when we were doing direct to consumer, running $60,000 of ads a month, and I had to figure out how to spend it, and we hired an agency to do that. Did we overspend? Probably, like on the agency. Um, you can save someone so much money and time by just telling them like, hey, these things are probably bad ideas, these things are probably good ideas, and you should probably be really careful about what you spend your money on. Because a lot of founders, they get the itch to like blow up, and they think that like if they spend money with the right person, it'll make that happen for them. That's not true. You got to just do the hard work, and the hard work never stops being hard. But to your point, it's expensive to even get started. So it's like you want to take those dollars and consolidate them and shove them into the one thing that's going to get you those leads. And if you're in my shoes or some of our clients' shoes or some of my friends' shoes, do you have an organic method of guerrilla marketing to get the first one, two, three franchisees? And usually the answer should be yes, because if you've been running your business long enough, you're
you
a
should
direct
have
to
a customer.
consumer
Yeah.
company, you got customers, someone in there is your franchisee. I like if you've been running a restaurant for 10 years, there's your franchisee's been to your restaurant, and
Yeah.
probably
Well,
like 6 years
for
ago.
no bake, I think your second franchisee was the customer. It's like, hey, we
Yeah.
loved what you did, and that's what it
And this
was.
time around, man, this time the first four customers, and then two of them are investors in the
Yeah.
brand.
Yeah.
Like people, every single one of them tried our product before 2020, which
Yeah. And
means
that's what it
they've
is.
known me for 7 years, which is super important. But yeah, like to your point, man, like people have to know that like that part is extremely hard, and then it's even harder to keep the lead gen funnel going because you
Well,
have to spend the money and you have to be
it's
disciplined.
yeah, and it's two things with the lead gen is from my background and what I've done, the two hardest things are this. One is if you can start from the ground up, that's best, right? But going into a brand and redoing what someone else has done for years and years and years and trying to change everything around, that takes so much time. That's what I'm really good at. I'm really good at doing that, but it just takes time to get the correct leads that you want eventually. And then the second thing is, once those leads are coming in, never shut that funnel off, because I tell you, once you shut that funnel off, it's going to take forever to get that back up.
And you've seen that happen firsthand.
Oh, I've seen it. I've seen it happen with so many brands, and it's a matter of us saying, so many. Well, I say so many, but yeah, a good amount of brands saying we're growing too fast. I'm like, that's great. Keep the process going. Keep the funnel going. Now let's hire people. But that's also where we're good. Like someone like you and I are good consultants. Is that's why we want to teach you how to do the first 5, right? Because after that, after the first 3 or 5, that's like you should be thinking, okay, who should we be hiring now, and keeping that lead flow going.
Yes.
So it's just having the right people at the right time. Like I have all my bosses always said, hey, you want a promotion, build your bench. That's the same thing with a franchisor. Hey, you want to grow? Know who you're going to be hiring in the next year. Like have that person already on your bench, knowing that I'm going to be reaching out to these 5 people once I hit to this point. So always continue to think about how you're going to build your bench, and never turn off that lead flow, because once you do that, it's miserable, if not almost impossible, to get it back going again.
And it's also very, very difficult to teach people to do that. I know it firsthand because I struggled to do it. And then as I matured as an entrepreneur, it became easier. And it took for me, it took respecting my time as much as I respected my money.
Yeah. And sometimes your time's more valuable. It is
more valuable, and also the more that you buy back your time and remove yourself, you actually generally remove barriers to like making things happen. Because if you're doing everything and like you have control problems, which most of us do, you start becoming the problem, right? Like every lead's got to pass through me, every phone call's got to pass through me, and then it's like, hey man, like you don't have a team, like, or like if you do have a team, they don't do anything. They should be doing stuff, and it's hard to build that like functionality. The place where it happened for me the first time was when I started scaling our internal manufacturing 2022, 23. I started realizing, like I can't, manufacture hundreds of thousands of pounds of cookie dough by myself. Yeah. And then
pictures are great though. Watch you on the floor.
Yeah, you can't do like every job. Like maybe you put lids on jars fast. Or maybe you do quality checks better, but like someone else got to do that job. And that someone else is going to make like $15-16 an hour, and it is what it is. And once I started to let go and then build processes to do that, man, I was like, oh, this is what was missing. Like even at the scoop shop level, that was right around the time we started really like building out like the documentation of processes inside of even the scoop shop, because we became like obsessed with this idea of like, you can buy back your time. And one of the easiest ways to buy back your time as an entrepreneur is identify places inside of your business that are less than $20 an hour. Like jobs. Like what are all the jobs that you do that are less than $20 an hour? And it's like, can you afford to hire those people? Probably. Are you going to take a pay cut if sales don't go up? Yes. Are you going to be less of a problem and so sales will probably go up? Yeah. And it turns out that like that was the unlock that allowed me to be doing what I'm doing right now. Like I said, like the scoop shop for the last 4 years has worked, and I credit that with that principle. And our factory, even at one point, we were like 30 employees strong, and I didn't have to be there at a certain point at the end, which was very interesting. It was also very expensive, and we were losing money. But I wouldn't necessarily tell. You shouldn't start a food manufacturing company unless you have millions of dollars. But if you have millions of dollars, it can be a really great business. I've watched friends go bankrupt doing it, and I've watched other friends get rich. So, hey, you can roll the dice too.
Yeah, but it's better to have a good nest egg before you go into it. So.
Yeah, it's a little different than this. I mean, every business, you definitely have to have like money to launch. The levels of money change. They definitely change. And it turns out for like a service-based business, it's lower. For other businesses, it's higher. For service-based businesses, though, to your point you said earlier, it's a lot higher. Take franchisor, for example. It's a lot higher than people think, because the costs are not like necessary to operate. They're necessary to exist. So like you have to pay for leads. Like you have to. And if
You
you
have
don't
to.
have the money to pay for them, you kind of are just like sitting around waiting,
Yeah.
which is terrible.
Yeah, and I think it's our the reality check that we talk to a lot of people that, hey, we want to franchise, and we go in, we say, you're probably about a year out. You're about 2 years out, right? It's not, oh yeah, let's go ahead and get you on right now. It's not always the
I
case.
also think a
And
good test for it, man, now that I've been through it twice, like we reactivated and then obviously we did the first time. The reason it's been easier for me this time, and I'll be totally honest with people, and someone told me this by the way, back when I was 24, I had a call with a guy before I had my call with your old firm, and he told me, hey man, the best franchisors, they're in this for like 35 years. And I was like, I really don't want to be in it for 35 years. And then he was like, also, the best franchisors, he's like, they're franchising around like year five. He's like,
yeah,
you're not in year five. And
yeah,
I was like, I was pissed off. I was like, doing this for 4 more years. So we were like a year in. And in my youth, I did not understand what he was telling me, but basically what he was telling me, and I don't think a timeline like 5 years, he also is kind of a clown for saying that.
yeah, yeah,
Here's what you actually should know as a person that has a brand that may or may not be franchisable. You will know if it's franchisable if you could get your first franchisee by snapping your fingers. Like you have customers, organic social, a brand that people recognize on some geographic level, and you could say, you know what? I've had people come in the store or I've had people look at me and say, do you guys sell franchises? If someone asks you the question, it's like product market fit, right? Like if someone asks me, "Are you franchising?" and you say no, but you're like, "Shit, someone asked." That's weird.
yeah. That's cool.
That's a
But yeah,
sign, guys. Like that
that you're
might be
onto
your
something.
yeah. It's like and that had by the way that did happen to us a little bit back in 2018, and I do think that like we weren't like super early, but we were early. Had we waited, we would have gotten wiped out by the pandemic even harder, which is hilarious. But had the pandemic never happened, yeah, perfect time to franchise for No Baked. We founded in 2017, opened the first store October 2017. Probably would have waited, open a few more stores, end of 2019. Maybe we start talking about franchising. Maybe then we work the kinks out. Maybe then we figure out what stores work, which ones don't, and then you franchise. But I always say, like, man, it shouldn't be hard to get your first franchisee. It should be a person that was like we started franchising again this time because a guy pestered me for 12 months for like that's actually what happened. I mean, I had a lot
Really,
of thought
I didn't know
around
that.
like whether
Yeah,
we do it. No, yeah, he actually didn't buy a franchise either. This is hilarious. I registered in Florida.
yeah.
I registered in Florida when we filed our FDD because he was in Florida and he's actually from Springfield. He was one of your customers.
See,
That's where he came
I was
from.
just
Came
that good.
from Mike. But this
Sorry that
guy,
didn't work out.
yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But he pestered me for a long time, and then like we took a really long time to get going, and eventually he emailed me and he was like, "Dude, it took too long." And I was like,
Yeah, time
"Okay,
kills deals. That's a real thing.
that's yeah, that's
That's a
fine."
real thing.
But I had this guy begging me to buy a franchise, begging me. That means that you should do it. Like that's what that happens. And it's like whenever that's not that obvious, it does set you off on a path that's going to be a little more difficult. Not that
Yeah.
you can't do that. It is
No.
completely
Yeah.
possible, but yeah, it's harder for a new business than an old business. And like my business is now old. Here we are.
Older. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's some good insight, and I think everybody thinks about franchising differently. And there's some bullets that I think about is, am I franchisable, or what makes me franchisable is, I think something that you just said. If someone said, "Hey, are you franchised?" That means that you have a good product, good brand. That's exciting. But it's also, if I ask you what sets you apart, and you give me a list of 10 things, like I need one thing that sets you apart from all your competitors. What is that? And you can't come up with that. I mean, I'm not saying that you're not franchisable, but it's harder to set yourself apart. And
It's a
then it's
lot harder.
also, it's a lot harder. And then it's like, can anyone do it? Like, can I get a high schooler and teach them how to do this? Can I train you quickly? And do you honestly have a proven process? Like, yeah, granted, you had 1 year of great sales. Do you have two or three that you can show me that has been well? And then I always ask this question: well, that's great. You made all this money. How much time did you work in the store? Oh man, I was there 68 hours a day or a week. Man, that's great. Oh, I have to be there 80 hours a week to make this. I mean, that's not why I'm joining a franchise. I want to work 60 hours a week for the first half year to a year to learn it and do it. But if you're saying I have to do it for 3 years to make that, it's not. No, it's not for you. It's not franchisable. It has to be quick, not easy, but it has to be
Simple.
quick to get into.
Simple.
You got to simplify it,
Simple. Let's be
and you got to
quick,
have a good phone.
simple, teachable.
Yeah, but there's a lot of things when we talk to clients of not seeing what you are doing, but I always look for the red flags in businesses, and then I back that into, are you ready to franchise or not? Yeah, but I think later on, as you do this podcast more, we should get some of the clients that are starting out and hear their
I need to get more of them on,
trial.
dude. I need to get more restaurateurs on. That's what I've been talking to Daniel, my co-host, about. Daniel has
Who
two
bailed on us.
food.
Jeez.
Yeah, he bailed on us. He has two food concepts that most of you know about, but also he just opened his first physical location for Shivanada in this really cool place in Nashville called Lost and Found. If you're in Nashville or you're ever going to be in Nashville, you should check it out. It's like it's a bar slash like food truck park concept. They like built it out. It's like basically like a restaurant, but I think it has like 8 like food concepts inside of it, and then like a really cool bar, sick drinks, and all the entrepreneurs involved in it are guys that have like either other locations of like coffee shops, restaurants around town,
That's
and then
we
guys
have
like
those.
Daniel that have food trucks. It's amazing.
That's awesome. So if people ever come out to Denver, Colorado, that they're all over the place. We have like 5 of those markets, and it's all these phenomenal food truck owners or people that like they're phenomenal, but they don't have a storefront and they're testing it out. And you go to the food market, you just walk in, you have like 10 or 15 different concepts you can choose from and patios, and dude, you can try some, and it helps those restaurant owners saying, hey, do I have something? Do people like what I have? And a lot of those now stores that I've been to, I'm like, oh man, now they got a storefront. That's awesome for your.
It
for your
also
colleague.
provides like
Yeah.
it provides the foot traffic.
Oh,
Like he sent me his Square screenshots, and I was just like, oh, this is gonna continue. I was like, this is amazing. Like they're just getting tons of people because like people are continuing to look for like new innovative places to like hang out. Go to the same restaurant over and over again. And I lived in East Nashville and got kind of boring restaurant scene after a while. There's good restaurants in East Nashville, don't get me wrong, but I just started going to the same ones over and over again. And it's like people are looking for something new. And something new is usually gonna like kill it. And if it's like combined power like that, I'm pumped. I want to get all those guys on this podcast.
I think we need to get Misty on here too with all the restaurants that she represents in her.
Oh yeah,
too.
Misty was booked for next week, and then she canceled on me.
Oh, was she?
No, she rescheduled.
Oh.
Yeah, she had something come up. I don't know who I'm having on next week.
I want to be
If
on that
anyone
one.
wants to be on my podcast, please reach out, put a comment in the comment section, and tell me. All right, Mike, this has been great. I have to stop podcasting and start working.
Yeah, same here. We went way over, so appreciate you, man.
We're good. All right, man.
Talk
I
to
will
you
talk to you later. See you guys.
See you, buddy. Bye.
Hold on.